And welcome back. Here we are. It is time for the Women's NCAA Outdoor Championship preview. Even though we know that the women will take place this Thursday and this Saturday, and the men should take place Wednesday and Friday. This is shaping up to be a pretty exciting NCAA championships because there's a bevy of storylines to take place. And we're going to focus here on each individual event. We'll talk about two to three challengers. And if there is an event where I think there's a dark horse, we'll talk about that as well. We'll also hear from my pick for each event, including the team title battle. Um, so if I seem typical in some of my choices, yes, I am taking in a number of opinions, but also looking at the data and the performance over the year. And I'm aware in our sport, it is not uncommon for us to run to an event where it's someone who was performing mid all year long and they somehow win an event. They win the national title. That's happened before, but you can't really predict against that. So when we do our recap show next week, I will see how many I got right and how many I got wrong. All right, without further ado, we'll get started and we'll start on the track as usual. And we'll start with the shortest event on the track, which is the 100-meter dash. And in the 100, we have two primary challengers. We have Shanice Walker of Florida State and Adasia Hodge of the University of Georgia. Both of these young ladies have had outstanding outdoor seasons. Shanice debuted strong at the Florida Relays, running a 1080, which is currently the fastest time out of a Jamaican woman, which is having an insane year in the 100. And then you have Adasia Hodge, who has the fastest time in the NCAA, running a 1077. But I want to submit to you the dark horse, and that is Brianna Selby of USC. And I'm also going to submit to you this. Yes, she is in fact my pick to win it. I am aware of the greatness that is Adasia Hodge. I saw the videos. I saw her very comfortable 10.86 in the first round of the NCAA and regionals. I saw Shanice Walker's 1080. I saw her comfortable 11.0, her comfortable 10.9. But I also saw Brianna Selby's comfortable 10.83, and I saw her very comfortable 1.8 at 10.74. So I believe these three women are sort of in the same category, and I think they're going to all be major players at the next level. I am going to lean with Brianna Selby because I trust the coaching staff at USC. This Her performance reminds me a lot of Melissa Jefferson before she was Melissa Jefferson when she was Melissa Jefferson at Coastal Carolina. Her coach had her very well prepared for the NCAA championships, ran that amazing 10.77. And I think he has also prepared Brianna Selby to do the same thing. I think that she is, very capable and is going to put on a great performance. Regardless of the competition, she seems to rise above. And that she's training against a bevy of insanely talented sprinters. USC has a very strong 4x1. I think the only team that can really challenge them, and we'll talk about this when we do the 4x1 preview, is Georgia. And I'm really looking forward to seeing what this becomes of this race, but Brianna Selby is my pick. In the 200, we also have Hodge here as well, along with Jamesia Ford of South Carolina and Cameron Dixon of Texas A&M. All three of these ladies have had an outstanding year in the 200. I think Hodge has been more consistent than either of them, and she's beaten both of them this year. Jamesia has been the most inconsistent to me this year, and I think some of that is because the decision within her training under Coach Tim Hall was to have her prepared for the outdoor season and for the championship. Her goal is to ultimately make Team USA to compete at the World Ultimate Championships. And we'll see how that works out. But she has a PR of 22:01, which is a strong time. But we're in the age now, specifically for American women, where in order to be considered a threat to make Team USA, you have to run sub 22. Um, Cameron Dixon, a senior, running a 22-1 new school record at a school that has produced a number of really great 200-meter runners under Coach Pat Henry. And he also did the same thing when he was at LSU. But I don't think either of them are going to be able to hang with Adasia Hodge. I think she's the obvious winner, the only sub 22 athlete in the field, and she broke the NCAA record indoors. And I think she has a legit shot at possibly breaking it outdoors. So we will see what becomes of her performance, if the weather will hold up. But I am very confident with the choice of Adasia Hodge. Moving to the 400, we have Dejanay Oakley of the University of Georgia, the sole sub 49 athlete in the field. Yes, she's a 48.9. Not only did she go under 50 seconds, she went way under, went under 49. The talented Kaylin Brown of Arkansas. And then we have Madison White of USC. All three of these ladies have run sub 50. Um, I think speed wise, the fastest speed wise is, of course, Madison White. I mean, there was a big question if we were going to see her run the 200. She did run that 21.78, which was heavily wind aided, but we are aware that she probably has the speed of a sub 22-second 200-meter run in her. I think she's a better comp to Adasia Hodge than Ford or Dixon. Um, I think she's going to have a tough time with Oakley and Brown, who are, to me, two very natural 400-meter runners. Oakley has looked the most consistent and the most comfortable in the 400 from indoors to out. So she is going to be my choice to win the 400. Moving to the 100 hurdles and sticking in the sprint space, we'll talk about Aaliyah McCormick of Oregon. She is the defending NCAA champion. She leads the NCAA with that 12.44 win legal time, which puts her in the world class, I believe top 10 or top 15. She should feel pretty good about herself and her potential professional prospects running a time like that at regionals. To me, she's a full class ahead of the rest of the field. But she will see a challenge from Emmy Scales of Kentucky, which to me, and you'll hear me voice this when I do my hurdles video, I think Kentucky right now makes the case for probably the best hurdles program in the country on the women's side. They have three women that will be competing in the 100 hurdles this weekend, including two under 13 seconds. But Emmy Scales leads that really strong hurdling group for Kentucky. And then you have Tashina Alace of Southern, yes, from the HBCU in Louisiana. Tashina doesn't have the greatest start, but once she gets going, it is insanely difficult to even try to stop her. In fact, no one has. She has not lost a race this outdoor season. And it's going to be interesting to see what she looks like up against McCormick and up against Scales. Because she's not a great starter, didn't the 100 the 60 hurdles doesn't work well for her. But those extra 40 meters allows for her to really use her speed and just run phenomenal times. She's won on the campus of LSU against the big competition. She's won her conference. Kind of been coasting majority of the outdoor season. She's been great. She at one time was the NCAA leader before Leah McCormick got things rolling. But Aaliyah McCormick is my pick to win the 100-meter hurdles. Now, moving to the 400 hurdles, you of course have Akala Garrett of South Carolina, formerly of Texas. The irony is both programs under their previous coaches, Texas with Bev Kearney and South Carolina with Curtis Fry, were very good at developing 400 hurdlers. And so here she is going from one great program to the next, even under different coaches. Both programs have a history of great 400 hurdling. Um, you know, South Carolina had LaShinda Demas as an alum, and Texas had Melaine Walker of Jamaica as an alum. So Akala's coming from great pedigree, and she's having an insane year. She's the only sub 54 in the field. She's also the only low 54. There really isn't anyone in her range. She's almost a full second ahead of the closest competition. So it'll be tough for the athletes to pick to challenge her. Michelle Smith of University of Georgia, I think, is her closest challenger. In the dark horse, I'm going to say, is Amelia Burdo of Texas. But I think this race will be a Kyla Garrett's to lose. I think it is just her all the way. Moving up to the middle distances, we'll look at the 800 and Sanu Jalu of Arkansas, who is having an incredible outdoor season. She ran a 157.74 at regionals, nearly broke the NCAA record um, all time. She is number two. And a Ting Mu set that amazing record a few years ago en route to an Olympic gold medal. I think it's time that we kind of put Sanu Jalu in expectation that she's going to probably be an Olympic medalist. The event has just gotten even tougher with Hodgkinson of Great Britain, who won last year at the World Championships. We were introduced to someone new. Uh, her name forgets me, but she just ran on 153.9. The 800 is like the 400. It's going through a metamorphosis. It is an even more challenging event than it ever has been. But I think the star of this field is Sanu Jalu. We can't ignore the indoor championship, who I think is her toughest challenger, Gladys Chipikatich of Clemson. She won indoors and she led from cover to cover, or I should say from start to finish. She was excellent indoors. And she wasn't even my pick. There was a lot of doubt because when it came to the championship meets, on occasion she would falter. And we've seen that she's made up for that this season. She's been focused on winning the major championships, and she's in a tough conference, the ACC, which has North Carolina, which has Duke, which has Florida State, which has Virginia Tech, which has Virginia, which has Wake Forest. I mean, there and NC State. There are so many really great middle distance and distance programs in that conference that to win that requires a very high level of skill, and she's proven that. She won the indoor title. She is going to be mentioned here. I just think she's a step behind Sanu. We'll see, because we thought that indoors. That was literally my argument on this channel in the same video for the indoor preview. I was convinced she was a step behind Sanu. We'll see what happens outdoor. And I think the dark horse for this race is Michaela Page of North Carolina. Don't even know why I'm really calling her a dark horse, because she's a legit threat. She's got a 158 800. And the sub 159 athletes are the athletes that I really think we should keep an eye on. But my pick will be Sanu Jallo of Arkansas. Now moving to the 1500, where things get even more interesting. We have Rosemary Longisa of Washington State. And Rosemary has led since she ran that amazing mile 1500-meter time early in the season. She's been kind of a leader in the clubhouse all outdoor season. And I don't really expect that to change here. I'm going to go on a limb and say right now she is my pick to win it. I think the challenger to her is Juliet Tirabet of Oregon, along with Juliet's teammate, Wilma Nielsen of Oregon, who I believe is the dark horse. Both Oregon ladies are leading a very strong contingent of Oregon runners. In this 1500, they'll also have the benefit of the crowd, but I don't think Rosemary will be that phased. I think it's going to be incredibly difficult to beat her. She's been a really strong performer in this event pretty much majority of the outdoor season. Um, but I don't think we can ignore Juliet, who's ran strong, and Wilma, who's ran strong indoors. All right, moving to the steeplechase, a 3,000-meter steeplechase. We have a really strong field. It was weakened by not having Doris Lemengol or Pamela Koskei. However, it's still a great, talented group. But in the 3,000-meter steeplechase, you have Sophie Novak of Notre Dame leading the way. And Notre Dame has done a great job over the past couple of years with not just their distance athletes, but in this particular event, the steeplechase is really becoming one of their strongest events. And Sophie is proof of that. And she is going to be a strong competitor in this event. We have Taylor Lavelle of BYU, who is the challenger. And of course, the BYU athletes always show up at the championship meets and perform well. They surprise us a little bit indoors in that DMR, but I think they're making up for it with strong outdoor performances. And I think the challenger really isn't or excuse me, the dark horse really shouldn't be a dark horse, should be just another challenger. I'm going to call the dark horse is Angelina Napoleon of NC State. Cannot leave those NC State athletes out. They show up at the big meets. We've seen it the past 5 years, so not going to change anytime soon. With all that being said, my pick is Taylor Lavelle of BYU. I trust the BYU athletes to show up big here. Of course, a couple years ago, they had Courtney Wayment of BYU who won, and she ran an incredible time. But without Doris Lemongo, I think it'll be a lot easier for Taylor Lavelle to win the national title. And moving up to the 5K, this is where those big names show up. We have Pamela Koskei, who is the defending champion in the 5K and in the 10K, who's kind of gone under the radar. This talented New Mexico athlete from a school that has got some serious names competing this weekend. But Pamela Koskei is the defending champion in 5,000, and to me, she is the obvious favorite. Then you have Jane Hedengren of BYU, the superstar freshman, who has beaten Doris this year, and is the primary reason why Doris has decided, you know what? I've done enough dominating the 3,000 meter steeplechase. Let me get into the paint with these young ladies in the 5K and show them what I'm capable of. Regardless of what we think of her indoor performance, Doris has proven to be very capable. And this for this event in particular, I'm not going to say she's a dark horse, but I am going to acknowledge she is not the two main betting stars. It really is Pamela Koskei and Jane. My pick in this event will be Pamela Koskei. I'm going with the defending champion. Now, moving to the 10K, we have similar prospects. You have Jane, you also have Pamela, but then there's also another name, Hilda Olamomoy of Florida. Pamela is a defending champion in this event as well. Hilda has been a multiple All-American in this event. I think this is actually her strongest event. And as I said in my regional recap, she looked very light and she looked to be in her best health at the regional meet. She ran two great races in both the 5K and the 10K, and I thought, it's hard to compete that double. It is very hard. But I really do think the 10K is her best event, and I do think she'll be a strong competitor here. She is going to be heavily leaned on because Florida is in a team title battle against Georgia. And Georgia is strong where Florida is not. And where Florida is also strong, Georgia might actually be stronger. So we'll see. Except for in the distance events. This is where Florida can separate themselves from Georgia, or not necessarily separate themselves, but make up the points that they're going to lose. But my pick in the 10K is not Jane or Hilda. It is Pamela Koskei. I really do predict her going back to back, winning the double. I think she is very capable of doing both. She has been under the radar, not the superstar like her teammate Hampton Samuel, and she should be. I think part of the reason is because Jane has ran so well is because Doris has run so well. But we thought that last year, and she showed up at the NCAA Championships and ran two great races. So we'll see. Now, moving to the relays. So before we go into the field events, we'll look at the 4x1. And like I said earlier, we have three great teams. USC, Georgia are the two biggest. And I believe the dark horse is South Carolina. I really do think this race is between USC and Georgia. Georgia has about three athletes that can run sub-11. And USC on paper has two. I do believe they technically have three. USC is actually a much stronger squad than I think people are giving them credit for. I think people tend to forget they have Madison White running that curve. And that is their strength. I think it's going to be very, very difficult to defeat USC. Only school I think that has a shot at that is Georgia. I think Georgia is going to put up a really great time, but so is USC. And USC is my pick to win the 4x1. The 4x4, it is a very similar situation, unfortunately, for Georgia. It's between Arkansas and Georgia, with South Carolina being the dark horse. And I think in this situation, it is Arkansas. I don't think anyone would disagree with me. They've almost broken sub 320 again. 400 is having a renaissance, and Arkansas is part of the leaders of that, but they are particularly strong in the 4x4. And no matter who they've gone up against this year, they have really just hammered those teams. And specifically Georgia and South Carolina have taken the brunt of their performance, and I think that'll happen again. Now, moving to the field events, we'll get started right away with the high jump. And of course, we have Timito Adesina of Texas Tech, who leads the way. She has been the top performer in the high jump all season long, and it doesn't look like that's going to really change. So I'm going to go on a limb here and pick her now as my favorite to win the event. I think she will be challenged by, again, Rose Yaboa of Illinois, but I also think she will be challenged by the woman who beat Rose Yaboa, that is Valentina Fakroga of UCLA. Yes, UCLA, returning back to those glory days of Coach Jeanette Bolden when they were great at practically every event. That was UCLA's strength. They had really good coaching throughout the track, not just in the sprints. They had really great hurdlers. They had great middle distance runners. Really strong, however, in the field events. That is actually where their bread was buttered when they won all those runner-up performances and even the national title under Jeanette Bolden. Um, there was heavy reliance on their field events. So it was great to see a high jumper from UCLA back in the mix. But I do, again, think it'll be Timmy Tote winning it. Moving to the pole vault is where things also get interesting because, yes, we do have Hannah Mo, defending champion, along with Anna Mo, her sister, and also a defending champion, both of Washington. And we're expecting a lot of the Washington sisters, or excuse me, the Mo sisters to represent Washington and score 18 points, sure. But we can't ignore who really is the dark horse who is tied, Amanda, for number two. That is Anna Willis of South Dakota. And South Dakota is making a name for themselves in the pole vault. Because like Washington, they have multiple athletes that will be competing here. And it's, the 15-foot jump is that magic mark. And Anna can do that. Now, Hannah is the one with the 16-foot jump, so we'll see. She is my pick to win it. But I think that, and I'll be very honest with you, I think that all three of them are capable of winning. And that does include Anna Willis of South Dakota. But I'm going to trust Hannah Mo to win it all. Moving to the long jump. We had an incredible performance at the regionals from Alyssa Jones of Stanford, jumping number two all time, that amazing 23-foot jump. She looked great, and she did it against Sophia Beckman of Illinois, who is her biggest challenger. Sophia is being coached by the great Petros Kyprianou at Illinois, who, just as we know, made the really big transfer of getting Skyline Townsend of Georgia to transfer in the middle of the postseason. Wow. To Illinois to go along with that great incoming class. But I think Alyssa's performance kind of cemented her as clearly the favorite, and I'm going to lean on her as my pick. I finally have been swayed, even though, honestly, I've loved Sophia all year long. I think it took me to watch Alyssa win on the same track against Sophia for me to be convinced. I think the dark horse is Ida Bregan of UTSA. Um, she is currently being coached by Kareem Street Thompson, former great long jumper from Rice, and I believe a former assistant coach at Florida State, if I'm not mistaken. So we'll see what becomes of the women's long jump, which should be a lot of fun. I just have really fallen in love with the long jump performances over the past couple of years because we're seeing marks that we haven't seen in a long time. And that gap that had existed for such a while within great jumping performances is starting to close again. And now we move to the triple jump. And Sharifa Davranova, excuse me, always stumble over her name, Sharifa Davranova of Oregon, is the favorite coming into the meet. She is a top performer in the NCAA. And she's being challenged mainly by Shantae Foreman of Clemson, who I've seen in person and who I've talked a number of times on this channel. It's ironic. Shantae to me still has the best mark indoor outdoor of the entire season. I believe, and I think she is the toughest challenge for Sharifa, even though Sharifa is leading this really great jumps core of Oregon that kind of gets ignored because Oregon is doing so well in their distance performances, but in the field events, in the shot put, or I should say, really in all the throwing events, but particularly the shot put, they're very strong. But they also become very strong within the long jump and triple jump. And the challenger for, or not challenger, the dark horse is Destiny Smith of Kansas State. We cannot ignore what Kansas State is doing. The coaching staff that was once at Arkansas is now at Kansas State, and they are doing an insanely good job with their jumpers. And Destiny Smith, a super freshman, is probably their next big star. So I'll probably be talking a lot about her in the future. But I'm going to shock you all and say Shantae Foreman is my pick. I am going to always pick her until I feel that she can't compete. But she can, and she always performs at a high level every time I've seen her in person. It was great to see her again at the pin relays, and so I'm thinking she's going to do the same here. Moving to the shot put, we have Axelina Johansson of Nebraska, and you all know how I feel about Nebraska and their great development of the field athletes. But Axelina has been, performing at a very high level all year long. She's the defending champion, and I think it's going to be difficult for anyone to beat her, which is why I will call it here and now and say to me she is going to win. I do believe that her challenger is Megan Haug of Auburn, and I do think a dark horse is Antoinette Nabwe of Minnesota. I think this is the weakest of Antoinette's events, ironically, even though she did not make the discus. But I think of the events that she's competing here this weekend, it's the one that where she's not favored. And I think it's very clearly Oxlina, who's already beaten Antoinette this season. Moving to the discus, we have Alita Van Dalen of Florida, and she's a big key point in Florida's team title hopes. Then you have Joyce Oguama of Alabama. I think this is a very obvious lean towards Alita. I think she's class of the field. She's actually beaten majority of the field already, but things can change at a championship meet. But I do believe the coaching staff at Florida will have her ready. I think the challenger is Enos Lopez of Arizona State. Arizona State returning to having a very strong throwing program. It's been a minute since we've mentioned an Arizona State thrower, so it's nice to say that again. Now, moving to the hammer throw, we have Antoinette Nabwe of Minnesota, Elizabeth Red daughter of Texas State as her challenger. This is a really interesting competition. At the beginning of the season, I was very heavily leaning towards Elizabeth of Texas State. But the Minnesota athletes just step up, and you're saying athletes, there's more than just Antoinette Nabwe. The dark horse to me is Hadley Street of Minnesota. Although she didn't have the greatest regional performance, she did enough to qualify, but she's been great all year long, along with Annie Nabwe, who to me is the favorite to win it, and who is also, at this time, my pick to win the national title. Again, I was leaning towards Elizabeth, but Antoinette Nabwe is having a year, and I didn't pick. I picked against her early in the season, and I learned my lesson. I don't think I'm going to do that again. Now, moving to the javelin, we have Evelyn Best of Bucknell, who has led all year long and really the class of the javelin field. This is an open event. We're looking for a new champion. There's also Michaela Vander Westhuizen of Rice. That's her biggest challenger. The dark horse is not really a dark horse because she is an Olympian competing for Italy, but that's Valentina Barrios Bornicelli of Missouri. This is going to be a great competition, the javelin. Evelyn Bliss is my pick, but I wouldn't be shocked if Valentina or Michaela won it. I think we're in for a treat in the javelin. We're going to probably see the all-time top 5 list or top 10 lists make 1 or 2 additions. Excuse me. Moving to our last event, that is the heptathlon. I am ecstatic about this event because it has jumped all over the place all year long. So I have a pick, but I'm saying here right now, I don't really want you all to hold me to it because I'm convinced it may not even be any of these ladies here. This is a deep field. Deep. And I said that a couple of weeks ago. The heptathlon is deep. We have Sophia Quasquelela of Washington, Juliet La Cuenta Huepner of Cincinnati, and the dark horse is Megan Humphreys of Illinois. Megan has been mentioned on my channel before. I think the transfer or the decision to go to Illinois has worked in her favor. Juliet is my pick. She has been, to me, the most consistent as a multi event athlete from indoor to out all year long. But it is by the thinnest of margins. It's going to be a tough competition. But I'm comfortable with Juliet being my pick. Now, moving for the team title pick, you see in the picture right now that I am leaning very heavily on Georgia. I think it's going to be very difficult for anyone to beat Georgia. I do. And that's not to knock Florida. That's not to knock Arkansas, who I think is the number three team. Um, Georgia, to me, has really not only a lot of hmm, not only a lot of leaders where they're very top heavy. They also have a lot of depth in a multitude of events, and they're not going to just totally rely on their runners. They're not. But if they were able to just rely on the runners, they have the strong enough athletes to win it with just their runners. But as you heard Coach Gilbert say last year, I have a great staff and I allow for them to recruit at a high level, and they do. So Georgia is my pick. I picked Florida to be the runner-up, Arkansas to be third, and if we're putting a team for fourth, I think it'll be USC. All right. So that is the video. I know that we have a lot to discuss when it comes to the men's side. But for the women's team title battle and for the women's competition and overall, let's enjoy it. We're seeing some record breaking for performances, some all time performances, and we're seeing the future of the sport literally right before our eyes because some of these ladies have already performed on the international stage and performed well. So we're being really given a treat at Hayward Field, which is our, in this country, our biggest and most prestigious stadium, for us to see athletes who are at a high performing level. So enjoy the championship meet, and I will see you guys again for the next video of the men's preview. Please like, share, comment, and subscribe, and thank you as always for your support.